On Sunday, Mexican President López Obrador presented his last government report highlighting the achievements of his term in office. In Peru, a forest fire has burned some 700 hectares in the Mulpush Conservation Area in the Amazon region. And in Palestine, the Israeli regime committed 3 massacres against Palestinian families, resulting in the death of at least 47 civilians. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Sunday, Mexican President López Obrador presented his last government report. The Mexican leader read the 6th and last document to inform the people about the decisions and actions taken during the last year of his term of office. López Obrador addressed issues such as the social programs aimed at senior citizens and young people, the continuity of the so-called second floor of the fourth transformation, as well as the social and economic policies promoted by his cabinet. AMLO also referred to the achievements and challenges faced with respect to security, health, infrastructure, and education.
How can we ignore the motto of the democracy apostle, Francisco Madero? Effective suffrage, no re-election. Or the quote of Lázaro Cárdenas, according to which a government or individuals that surrender the natural resources to foreign companies are committing treason against the homeland. With these ideals, we started our government almost 6 years ago. The first thing that we did was to make a reform in the Constitution until we could, and promote laws to stop the anti-popular politics that were being imposed and legalized by the main domain of an oligarchy power that seems to be a democracy. Still, on February 5th of this year, we presented to the Congress 20 constitutional reforms to restitute to the Constitution the revolutionary and popular meaning that had since it was written originally in 1917. These initiatives are in the spotlight and are different and opposite to the reforms that were approved during the 36 years of the nefarious neoliberal period, what they weren't thinking and to beneficiate the people, but to adjust the legal frame to facilitate the looting and the surrender of goods of the people in the nation to a minority, a voracious minority. Now, luckily, we are living in an authentic democracy, building a new homeland, enlightened and with brotherhood ties.
Mexican head of state also referred to successes policy has had in worker salaries and pensions.
In 2018, the average salary of workers enrolled in the social security system was of 352 pesos per day. Today is of 557 pesos. It is working the trust funding in the Mexican bank to repair the damage that were caused by the reforms of Cedillo Calderon when they reduced the amount of the pension of the worker to the 30% of the salary. Right now, all the ones that are getting the average salary of the will have the 100% in their retirement. In the north border, the income is the half of the VAT since we arrived, and the half of the income tax. In that region, the gasoline and oil cost an average 4 pesos per liter less than the rest of the country, and it was increased to the triple the minimum wage in real terms.
Mexican President López Obrador highlighted the work done since 2018 to reduce poverty in the country.
While in the government of Calderón and Peña Nieto, 100,000 people were impoverished every month. In our government, on the contrary, 100,000 Mexicans are coming out of poverty every month. From 2018 to 2022, according to the data, 5.1 million people came out of poverty. That is to say, 5.6%, something that has not happened in more than 30 years. A few months ago, the World Bank announced that from 2018 to 2023, poverty in Mexico went from 34.3 million people to 24.7 million people. In other words, in 5 years, 9.5 million Mexicans came out of poverty.
In other news, the majority of the Mexican parliament refused to comply with the decision of two courts that ordered the suspension of the judicial reform discussions. In the words of the coordinator of Morena's parliamentary group, Ricardo Monreal, the instructions of a court in Morelos and another in Chiapas were inadmissible and out of order. In both cases, the judges ordered the two chambers to abstain from discussing any project related to the reform. Monreal assures that these maneuvers reflect the desperation of some sectors that are trying to preserve their privileges to the detriment of the Mexican people.
In such premises, this legislative majority categorically and energetically determines that it does not and will not submit to the jurisdiction of the court or courts that order it because they do not have authority for it, because they cannot suspend the analysis and discussion, and, if necessary, approval of the decision regarding the constitutional reform in judicial matters.
Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Peru, a forest fire has burned some 700 hectares in the Mulpuch Conservation Area in the Amazon region. According to local media, the fire started on Friday, August 30th, early afternoon local time, and it spread quickly. Although fire departments and local authorities are working to control the fire, they have warned about the need for more experts and volunteers to extinguish the flames. According to the report, the fire was caused by a woman who has confessed to having burned vegetation with the intention of sowing on a plot of land, but the flames got out of control. In Venezuela, life is returning to normal with the total restoration of electricity across the country following a sabotage against the system. Venezuelan authorities say they are monitoring the total resumption of power generation from a center in Guyana. The attack to the electric system by sectors of the Venezuelan far-right caused a blackout throughout several states in the country. At present, people in Venezuela are resuming their daily lives as business activities and public transportation have been restored. And in the face of the sabotage against the national electricity system of Venezuela, traders and entrepreneurs implemented strategies to get over difficulty. More details with our correspondent, Gladys Quesada.
This is the LeBron Market at the entrance of Petare, one of the most popular areas of Caracas, the capital of Venezuela. Many of those who have their stalls here will open their doors normally this Saturday. However, the day before, due to the sabotage against the national electric system, they took measures.
What we were able to do was to see that there was no electricity, and then we automatically took the second option, which was to get out mainly from what was cold. The people accepted. We gave them the explanation that there was no electricity, and then they took it raw. I went out to work because we have to produce. In other words, we have to wait in holy peace. We have to be calm, especially because the conditions of the country are such that we have to work, because fighting is not the way to win anything.
Although many looked for alternatives to stay active, it played a trick on others.
Because people always have their cash underneath anything. So we were here and we fulfilled what was needed.
No, because I couldn't come. There wasn't a light.
Yesterday, I was affected precisely because of the lack of electricity. I couldn't work because we couldn't move. I live on the 11th floor and I couldn't go downstairs.
On the other side of the situation, customers and passers-by also had a different Friday because of the lack of electricity. However, they found a city and businesses that, although at a different pace, followed the rhythm.
They believed that they were going to have some activity in the population. On the contrary, the population was mobilized. We did well except for the subway that couldn't work, precisely to avoid some major inconveniences, and the people were mobilized. The people went to work even when we were unable to work due to lack of electricity, but we were present.
100% are active, thanks to God, 100% active, and that is understood that Venezuela really wants to move forward, and in spite of everything that was happening at the moment, what it does is to delay us.
People went out to work peacefully even though there was no subway service in some circumstances. At least, I saw a lot of movement in the streets. The merchants opened their doors like a normal day. I don't think there was any impediment to continue growing as a country.
According to official figures, more than 1,400,000 Venezuelans are registered as entrepreneurs, whose economic growth in the first semester of 2024 reached 15%. Attacking them is an attack against a pillar of the prosperity of the country. However, they are motivated by their commitment.
We're in the best country on this world, which is Venezuela. It is what it has given us, and it is what the Venezuelan people are. People that give love, affection, and work. And that is what we want, and that is why we fight for this country, to move forward, and long live Venezuela.
Gladys Quesada, TeleSUR, Caracas, Venezuela.
Moving on, the U.S. National Institutes of Health announced a cancellation of the research on the so-called Havana syndrome disease. Experts detail that the decision is based on the declarations of several of the participants that state that they were forced to participate in the research. For the investigations, the institution requires the consent of the subjects from the study as an ethical guarantee of the research. Likewise, the institute declared that during the first phases, no clinical signs or active symptomatology were found in the participants. In this regard, the president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, through a post on the social media X, rejected the accusations of the government of Washington. The head of state also mentioned that the investigation was a vile pretext to include Cuba in the list of sponsors of terrorism and reinforce the genocide blockade with more than 240 measures, calling this incident as a Trump work that Biden maintains. Honduran President Xiomara Castro has just appointed Rizzi Moncada as new Secretary of Defense. The announcement was made by the Honduran President herself in her inaugural speech on the national holidays 2024. The appointment follows the resignation of José Manuel Zelaya, coinciding with the resignation of his father, Carlos Zelaya, as Secretary of the National Congress, both in the context of investigations into Carlos Zelaya's meetings with external actors back in 2013. Moncada is scheduled to deliver a speech on her appointment, having previously resigned as Finance Secretary to launch her presidential candidacy campaign. The French Coast Guard reported on Saturday that 223 migrants have been rescued in the waters of the English Channel in the last 48 hours while trying to reach the United Kingdom. The Maritime Prefecture reported that migrants were traveling in several small overloaded boats with technical problems. Some of the migrants were in the water at the time of rescue after their boat sank, while others refused help with the intention of reaching the British coast. The United Kingdom has tried to stop the arrival of migrants from France, while Europe has only succeeded in aggravating the lethality of the transit routes of those trying to flee hunger, war, and violence. Now, Russian military forces repelled a massive Ukrainian drone attack on Sunday. At least 11 of the devices were aimed at Moscow, the country's capital city. According to the Defense Ministry, more than 160 drones were launched from Kiev against several Russian regions. 3 of them were aimed at the power plant of the city of Kashira in the Moscow province. The regional government confirmed that there were no injuries, casualties, or material damage. One of the drones shot down over Moscow fell on an oil refinery where a fire broke out in other provinces such as Voronezh, Ryazan, Belgorod, and Tula. More than 85 of these unmanned aerial vehicles were also shot down. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Palestine, during the last few hours, the Israeli regime committed 3 massacres against Palestinian families, resulting in the death of at least 47 civilians. The Israeli attacks in the rest of the Gaza Strip wounded 94 Palestinians. The strikes also prevented the emergency services from treating the victims and recovering the bodies trapped under the rubble. With this, the numbers of martyrs since October 7, 2023 exceeds 40,700, while the number of wounded is estimated at more than 94,154. Also in Palestine, health authorities began the rollout of a polio vaccination campaign in Gaza after the war-torn territory recorded its first case in 25 years. The campaign began in central Gaza and will later continue first in the southern areas and end in the north. The campaign aims to cover more than 640,000 children under 10. The World Health Organization said that Israel agreed to a series of 3-day humanitarian pauses to facilitate vaccinations. However, humanitarian workers and international organizations state that what is really needed is a permanent ceasefire.
The Gaza Strip. I'm currently in a UNRWA health facility in Deir al-Balah, where today we have started the rollout of the polio vaccination campaign. You will be able to see around me there are hundreds, if not thousands, of children who have been in this health facility today in the area of the Gaza Strip. They've been receiving their vaccination, and it's incredibly critical for our vaccination campaign that we continue this momentum after the first day. We're going to be in the middle areas for the next 3 or 4 days, rolling out this campaign before we go to the southern areas of the Gaza Strip, and then finally finishing the campaign in the north. The campaign itself has been incredibly complex. Getting the vaccinations with our partners UNICEF and the World Health Organization into the Gaza Strip, it's been incredibly challenging. So far we have had humanitarian pauses in place. We are very hopeful that these pauses will continue, but what we really need and what these children really need is a ceasefire. We need a ceasefire now. You can see the children are much more relaxed today. They are moving more freely. They are not running for their lives. They are not in fear for their lives. We need a ceasefire now. With these children here, we need a return of the hostages, and we need this war.
In Pakistan, health authorities have confirmed the 4th case of Mpox. The disease declared a public health emergency of international concern. According to the report, this latest case was detected at Peshawar Airport in Khyber province, and it was transferred directly to the police and services hospitals for treatment. Officials warned that this would be the 3rd case detected in Peshawar, which they believe raises concerns about transmission and calls for immediate action by Pakistani health agencies. This past July, the World Health Organization issued the highest level of alert following the outbreak of a new, more infectious strain of Mpox, and it urged for continued vigilance on the spread of the disease. In China, preparations are on the way for the 9th edition of the China-Africa Cooperation Forum, FOCAC 2024. The meeting will take place from Wednesday, September 4th to Friday, September 6th under the slogan, "Working together to promote modernization and build a high-level in China-Africa community with a shared future. According to Chinese authorities, the parties will address peacekeeping, global security, development promotion, prosperity, governance, and agricultural modernization. FOSAC was established in the year 2000 as a platform for strengthening relations between the two sides. Since its inception, it has been a stage for important advances in project financing in Africa. In this context, dignitaries and delegations from Africa began arriving in Beijing. Several important understandings are expected to be concluded during this meeting, including a framework agreement on development cooperation and issues related to trade balance and market access expansion. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.